All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight for our webinar on Cook County property tax exemptions. The Cook County Assessor's Office is going to share a bunch of valuable information about your property taxes and what you need to know about any property tax exemptions that might contribute to lowering your bills. So things like the homeowners exemption, the senior exemption, or the senior freeze. We're going to cover stuff like that tonight. I am Carla Bruni. I'm the Preservation and Resiliency Specialist with the Chicago Bungalow Association. I have a little bit of information I just wanted to share with you about our 25-year anniversary. So we started what used to be the historic Chicago Bungalow Association in the year 2000. So we're at 25 years. We're super excited about that. We're going to have all kinds of ways to celebrate that anniversary this year. So those of you who are signed up, who are members and signed up on our e-blasts, you're going to get some information about that coming your way tomorrow. So just keep your eyes open for that. Tonight, we are joined by George Vargas, who's the Community Outreach Liaison at the Cook County Assessor's Office. We also have Michelle Radini in the background. She's helped us out with these before as well. She'll be looking and trying to answer some of your questions as we go through here. She's just an amazing outreach and support staff person to have on this as well. We will be doing Q&A at the end as usual. So please put any questions you have along the way in the Q&A box below, not in the chat. We won't see that, but in the Q&A box. And I will be jumping back on after George is finished presenting, and we'll go through those. The presentation should be somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes. We'll do the Q&A after until 7 p.m. and then we'll have a hard stop at 7 p.m. So just be aware of that when you're asking questions. If we don't get to everything, George has been kind enough, George and Michelle have been kind enough to say they can answer your questions after the fact. We will send out an e-blast after this. So, if any particular resources are mentioned along the way, and additional questions that we maybe didn't get to, we can include those in the e-blast for y'all. So as long as you signed up, you'll be getting that as well. Let me see, am I missing anything? I think that's about it. Also, sorry, this is being recorded. So if you miss anything too, don't worry. We will have it. You can get it through our Facebook page. You can also get it through our website at chicagobungalow.org. It will live there forever and ever. And you will be able to access anything you might have missed or skipped out making food or running around or whatever's happening to you, or being attacked by your cat, as I often am here. I think that's it. I think we're ready to go, George. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and pull up your presentation.
All right, I hope everyone can hear me. Well, I want to say thank you, Carla, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you to the Chicago Bungalow Association for having us for this presentation. We'll be talking today about, let me get control here. We're talking about exemptions for the 2024 tax year, which you'll need to apply for during this year, 2025. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. We'll talk briefly about the responsibilities of our office. Some of the responsibilities of our office include setting the fair and accurate value of 1.9 million parcels in the county. If it sounds like a lot, it's because it is. I believe by volume of parcels, we're the second largest county in the country, I think only behind LA County. So it is a lot of parcels that we're trying to, put values on. Something else that our office is responsible for is administering property tax savings. These are known as exemptions. So you'll see these exemptions, normally on your second installment property tax bill. That's the one that comes later in the year. So you may have received already your first one and we're wondering, where are my exemptions on here? So just keep in mind that they don't show up on there. That's because they'll appear until the next one. So yeah, those are some of the responsibilities of our office. Some of the things that people confuse our office, and things that we do are some of the following. Things that we don't do are we don't set your tax rates, your tax levies. We don't mail out tax bills or, decide the balance on your tax bill. Tax rates come from, your taxing districts, and that comes out as well for the levies. And the tax bills are sent out by the Cook County Treasurer's Office. So if you ever need to change your mailing address for that tax bill, things like that, you reach out to them. But that's something that people get confused a lot with our office is, these responsibilities that we don't do, unfortunately. We wish we could help, right? But fortunately, we can't. So something else that we want to touch up on, especially for those of us that were in the city, we were just affected by this. We want to talk about our triennial reassessment cycle. So every year, the Cook County, 1/3 of Cook County gets reassessed again for 2024. That was the city of Chicago. When reassessments are based on where you're located, this year we'll be reassessing the north suburbs. So that includes Schaumburg, Evanston, places like that. They'll receive reassessment letters for the year, letting them know what their values for the properties have changed to, if at all. If you disagree with the value that's given to your property, you are given 30 calendar days to submit an appeal. So what you're saying pretty much is saying, hey, you're giving this value to my property. I disagree because there's lack of uniformity. There's you're overvaluing me, or you have incorrect information about my property, which is changing the value. It's good to keep track of the dates for when appeals are. You can find that on our website by visiting the calendar and deadlines. And something to keep in mind is that you can submit an appeal every year. So, if you received your reassessment letter last year and submit an appeal, that's wonderful. You keep in mind that you can do it again, even if it's not your time to be reassessed. So something good to keep in mind. Something I like to say is that worst case scenario, your value stays the same, right? If you decide to appeal and you lose, it stays the same. Better case scenario, your value goes down to whichever the amount. You won't see an increase as part of an appeal. So something just want to touch up on very briefly, something to keep in mind. So we'll talk about the stuff that we all came to speak about, which is our exemptions. So our office offers 8 exemptions, and they are the homeowner exemption, the senior exemption, senior freeze exemption, veterans with disabilities exemption, returning veterans exemption, persons with disability exemption, the longtime homeowner exemption, and the improvement exemption. So we'll touch up on all of these a little bit, give you more information on all of them. And we'll start with the most common one, which is the homeowner exemption. So if you own your property and you live in your property, I hope that you're receiving this exemption. If not, there's ways that you can get the money back. But pretty much to qualify for this exemption, like I said, you need to own and have a own and live in your property from January 1st of the tax year in question. Oops, pardon me. Pardon me. So yeah, you must own and have own your property and live in the property for as of January 1st of 2024 in order to qualify for this exemption for this tax year. So, if you purchased a newly built home and it wasn't ready until after the year began, you can receive the exemption. It'll be prorated to what when you started living in the property. But again, this is an exemption that if you own your property, live in it, and pay the taxes, are responsible for the taxes, you should receive. For those of us in the city of Chicago, this amounts to about a $700 savings per year. If you live in a suburb, it could be even more. But it's important that you verify that you're receiving this exemption. And the good thing to keep in mind is that you have received it in the past, by applying for it. It'll renew automatically, so you didn't have to worry about reapplying for it. But if you did purchase a property recently, make sure that you apply, and so you can receive that discount. The other most common exemption is a senior exemption, very similar to the homeowner exemption, where the only other requirement is that you must be born in 1959 or prior. So you have to be 65 years or older. The good thing about this exemption compared to the homeowner exemption is that you don't have to be living in the property as of January 1st of 2024. If you moved in, for example, in February, that'll be prorated from when we moved in. If you moved in later, it'll be prorated from then. But this exemption just requires that you lived in the property at some point during the tax year in question. So in this case, 2024. And again, you must own the property and be responsible for the taxes. Nice thing about this exemption as well is that it'll also renew automatically. Pardon me. So if you have received it in the past by applying for it and you've seen it on your tax bill before, it'll renew automatically and you'll see it on there again without having to worry, which is a little different to the senior freeze. The senior freeze, like the senior exemption, does require that you're born in 1959 or prior, so you're 65 years or older. But on top of that, it has some other requirements. For example, your total household income will be $65,000 or less in 2023. So it's a little confusing with the years. For the 2024 exemption, we look at the income from the year before that, so 2023. And for this exemption, you must have owned the property and have paid the tax, been responsible for the taxes in 2023 and 2024. So again, some more rigorous requirements because you have to have been in the property for 2 years and have to have been responsible for the taxes for the property for 2 years. And then you must have occupied the property as your primary residence in these 2 years, so 2023 and 2024. Like I said, it is different compared to the senior exemption because this will not renew automatically every year. And again, the reason for this is due to the income requirement that the exemption has. So it's a little annoying, but from what I've seen and heard from our taxpayer information department is that it will be a little bit easier to apply for this exemption, hopefully this year. So if you do have to reapply for that online, it'll hopefully be a little easier where you don't have to give us all the information if you have received it in the past. If you are enrolled for one of the following programs in 2023, you don't need to provide proof of income for the exemption. These programs include Aid to the Aged, Blind, and Disabled program, AABD, the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, SNAP, Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, LIHEAP, the Benefit Access Program, or the Senior Citizens Real Estate Tax Deferral Program. So if you qualify for any of these programs, just provide proof from 2023. Again, 2023, we're looking at everything from the year before the tax year in question. So provide one of these for 2023 and you don't have to worry about, showing us what the household income was for that tax year of 2023. The person with disability exemption is my personal favorite exemption because you must have been disabled or become disabled during 2024. You must own or the property or have legal interest in it to, have in order to qualify, and you must be responsible for the taxes for the property. Like the homeowner exemption, you have to have been in the property from January 1st of 2024 in order to qualify. The reason why this is my favorite exemption is because we don't determine who's disabled, who's not, what qualifies and what doesn't. There are certain documents that you can provide to our office to show that you're disabled, but if you don't have any of these documents, you can provide a PTAX 343A form, which is a decision statement letting us know that, hey, this person became disabled this year, it can be backdated from 2024. So if you became disabled in 2022, for example, they can backdate it from then. And then you just have to submit that with your exemption application to let us know, hey, I should be receiving this discount. The good thing is that it can be completed by a physician or an optometrist. So you could take advantage of that as well if you have any eye issues by taking that to your optometrist. So the good thing about this exemption is that it'll renew automatically each year. So once you apply for it initially, you'll receive that automatically every year. And like I said, if you've been disabled from before, there are ways where you can get, refund for exemptions that you missed in previous years. So we'll touch up on that a little bit towards the end if you'd like. So yeah, that's the person with disability exemption. Next, we have the veterans with disabilities exemption. This exemption is a very, very good exemption if for all of our veterans that, have served our country, they qualify for it. So in order to qualify, you must have been an Illinois resident who served in the Armed Forces, National Guard, or the Reserves, and have to have been honorably discharged. You must be receiving at least 30% of service-connected disability certified by the USVA, the Veterans Affairs Department. The property must be your main home in 2024, and the equalized assessed value of your primary residence must be less than $250,000. Now, the reason why the value must be less is because depending on your percentage rating, as you'll see in the left part of the screen, will depend on how much your equalized assessed value is reduced. So anywhere from 30 to 49% of disability will give you a reduction of $2,500 from the equalized assessed value. anywhere from 50 to 69% will give you a $5,000 discount from the equalized assessed value, and 70% and greater will give you a discount of $250,000. So pretty much zeroing out the bill up to that $250,000 equalized assessed value. Now, this exemption will work for multi-unit properties. So if a veteran does have a multi-unit property, they can apply for the exemption. But if they're living in that building and, they're living in floor 1 and they're renting out, the other 2 floors, let's say it's a 3-apartment unit or building, pardon me, they will receive a discount of only the unit that they're occupying. The rest will be taxed normally. So something to keep in mind for veterans is that, if that is your case, you'll only be receiving the exemption on your unit. Now, a veteran that has been deemed permanently or totally disabled by the VA and has their 100% disability rating, this exemption will renew automatically for you. If you receive anything, again, from 30 to 89% of disability, you'll have to reapply this year and every year after that. But again, our office hopes to make it a little bit easier where if you are reapplying for this exemption, you don't have to go through the whole process and you have to supply less information and less documentation. So again, another great exemption for veterans if you're receiving service connected disability for you to take advantage for this exemption. The returning veterans exemption is for people who are currently serving in the U.S. Armed Forces or have recently completed service. You must be an Illinois resident who served in the Armed Forces, National Guard, or Reserves, and you must be returning from active duty in an armed conflict involving the United States in recent years. You must own the property or have a legal interest in it, and you must be responsible for the property taxes. In order to qualify for this, again, you do have to be occupying the property, claiming to be occupying the property as your primary residence on January 1st of 2024. This exemption will not renew automatically. All you have to provide as proof is if you've recently been separated from the service, your DD-214, certified by the Veterans Affairs Department, letting us know when you became separated and when you came back. Or if you're still active duty or in the Guard or Reserves, just letting travel vouchers, tickets, things like that, letting us know when you came back from service or from the conflict, letting us know, that you're back and this exemption will apply to you. Now, again, because this is from someone who's returning recently, this will not renew automatically. So if, a veteran is or an active duty person is going in and out, they'll need to apply for the exemption year after year. My favorite exemption, and I put this in quotes because it's really not, it's one of the exemptions that we get asked a lot about, but unfortunately this exemption only helps out about 2% of property owners in the county. And this exemption is a long-time homeowner exemption. You must have owned and lived in your property for 10 years, right? So for a lot of homeowners, this is the case for them. You moved from January 1st of 2014 to January 1st of 2024. Bam, a lot of people will have met that requirement. A total household income of $100,000 or less for income taxes in 2023. Again, we look at the year before the tax year in question. So again, that may be a lot of people, but the kicker for this exemption and the part that they don't really have control over is that there must have been a large increase in your property assessment beyond the maximum limits set by the state. So there's state legislature that says, your home value has to have increased significantly year after year for 10 years in order to qualify for this exemption. How do you know this is you? So the best way to know if this is you and if this exemption applies to you and your property will be that you'll receive an exemption application from our office letting you know, hey, your property has increased significantly where you may qualify for this exemption. If you do, please fill it out and send it in. So if there are any of you that receive this application in the mail and, the first 2 bullet points apply to you, submit that exemption application and mail it in. Something I want to point out is that if you receive that application in the mail for the long-time homeowner exemption and you're also receiving the senior freeze, is that you can only receive one or the other because they are income-based exemptions. Our office will review both exemptions and see which one gives you the biggest discount, and we'll give you whichever one gives you the biggest discount. So let's say you have a $2,000 discount through the long-time homeowner exemption, but a $3,000 via the senior freeze. We'll give you the senior freeze for the biggest discount. So Again, this exemption will not renew automatically because exemption applications will be mailed out to you if you do qualify for this. So if you keep receiving it, the application, keep mailing it in, so that way you can keep receiving the discount for your property. So again, sounds good when you hear it, but once you see the actual requirements, it's not very helpful or, very good. Next, the home improvement exemption. What this exemption does is allows homeowners to make improvements that increase the value of their home. So, for example, adding square footage or repairing flood damage without being taxed up to $75,000 of the added value for up to 4 years. What does this mean? So, for example, you have a one-floor building, you decide to add a second floor, that's adding square footage, right? So that's increasing the value. So what we'll do is that, let's say the increase in square footage increases the value of $50,000. You won't be taxed on that for 4 years. After 4 years, you'll see that increase be applied to your value, and then you start being taxed on the value of the whole house. But it does give you some time in between to not see the whole increase at once. So it's a good exemption. The home must meet the following conditions or requirements: be occupied by the owner as a primary residence and be a Class 2 residence. So single family home, 999 square feet, single family home, 1,800 square feet, things like that. So even condos, I think, will qualify for this if I'm not mistaken. And yes, this exemption will be renewed automatically upon the filing of a permit, right? So something to keep in mind that is very important with this exemption is that don't just have anybody that complete the improvements. Have someone that is, reputable complete them, because they have to file the permits in order for this exemption to kick in. So, once we get that permit, we'll say, okay, this exemption or this property had square footage added to it. Let's give them the exemption, and you receive that on your tax bill. You'll see it as part of the homeowner exemption on the tax bill if you were to receive this exemption. So it's a little confusing, but if you have done any improvements to your property that increase the value with our office, make sure that you're receiving it by checking in with us and seeing how, if you're receiving it, pretty much. Pardon me. There are some things that won't qualify for this exemption that people think will. So, for example, replacing your roof will not trigger this exemption. Replacing your windows will not trigger this exemption. Something we get asked a lot about is adding solar panels to your property. This will not increase your value, so the exemption will kick in for this. So there is a list on our website, and if you'd like to, I can show you at the end where you can find that list. But again, it's only improvements that add square footage or, increase the value of your home with us when we value it, that will have this exemption kick in. So, exemption, like I said, exemptions will only appear on your second installment property bill. You'll see them in the middle left part, towards the bottom left, and you'll see the homeowner exemption is receiving that senior, you're receiving that senior freeze, and if you have any other exemptions, they'll show up on there as well, and it'll show you the amount that you're saving for each exemption for that tax year. Something else that the tax bill will show you is a breakdown of where your money goes. The treasurer's office, Maria Papa's office, has done a good job of giving you a more detailed breakdown of which taxing districts are asking for more money from one year to the other, or which ones are asking for less, and they're letting you know how much more money is going to each one for 2024 compared to 2023. So something to keep in mind when viewing your tax bills. So the nice thing is that you can do all the filing for the exemption that I mentioned online, except for, like I said, the long-time homeowner, the home improvement exemptions, but the rest you should be able to file online. And you can even do a certificate of error. Like I said, a certificate of error is to get money back for exemptions that you should have received that you didn't. So I would recommend logging in or creating an account now before exemption applications open. Exemption applications for the 2024 tax year aren't open yet, but they've let us know that they'll open in early March. So I recommend creating that account now, so that way when the time comes to file the exemption applications, all you have to do is begin filing. Like I said, it's good to check your property exemption history. You can do so by going to our website, and then you can search your property by either the PIN or the address. So if you don't have the PIN, The good thing is that you can search it by address. Once you find your property, you'll see on there the PIN, the address, your classification code, your neighborhood code, which is something to keep in mind when appealing. You can see the exemptions from previous years. Something to look at as well that I would highly recommend is looking at your property characteristics, making sure that everything's correct, that we have the square footage correct for your property, things like that. And so that way, if you don't, you can submit an appeal to correct things like that. And again, the exemption history, if you haven't received your exemptions in the past that you should have, you can file a certificate of error to get that money back. So yeah, I highly encourage everyone to do so if they haven't already done so. But you also see appeal history. So if you filed an appeal in the past, you'll see that on there. You'll see permits as well by clicking the blue button at the bottom that says access more in-depth information. And yeah, it's a good place to get more information about your property and what we have about your property. So some frequently asked questions: why did my homeowner exemption amount change? So the value of the homeowner exemption can fluctuate as it is based on your municipality tax rate. So again, for us here in the city of Chicago, the last few years has been about 7%. So about a $700 savings. But if it changes to either decrease the tax rate or increase the tax rate, you'll see a fluctuation on that amount of savings as well. Or my exemptions, again, like I mentioned, you may have received your first installment bill recently and didn't see anything on there. The reason why that is because they'll only appear on the second installment property tax bill. Like I said, what if I was eligible in previous years? You can still receive refunds for up to, it says 4 years, but it's actually 5. So right now you can go back, and if you should have received the homeowner exemption in 2019 but didn't, you can go back as far as that. The only thing I want to say for that is that 2019 refund timeframe will go away soon. I think it's about August when it will go away. So if you have exemptions missing from 2019, I highly encourage you to submit that certificate of error to get the money back as soon as possible. Don't let it wait till the last minute, because like I said, I think it's come August, that money won't be recoverable anymore. So yeah, you can get money back for up to 5 years. What disabilities qualify for the disability exemption? Like I said, our office doesn't determine which disabilities qualify and which ones don't, who is and who isn't disabled, which is why we depend on that physician statement or the documents that you can provide. And like I said, the documents that you can provide instead of the physician statement can be found on our website under the persons with disability exemption page. When will the senior free income threshold change? That's a question that we get a lot, but the income threshold is something that is not controlled by our office, but rather by state legislation. However, it continues to be evaluated by legislatures down in Springfield. If I'm not mistaken, there was some sort of talks of increasing it recently, but nothing came to fruition from it. So again, if it's something that you want to speak to your legislators, it's something we recommend, but unfortunately, it's not something that our office has control over. What doesn't qualify as home improvements for the home improvement exemption? Like I said, common upgrades like painting, roof repairs, gutter repairs, etc. are not eligible. You can visit this link on the screen to view that list. You can also just go to our website and under exemptions, look for the repair exemption, and under FAQs, you'll see that list of what doesn't qualify. So I think I went through this a little faster than I thought I would, but we are here to help. So you can call us at this phone number, 312-443-7550. You can connect with us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're all on there. You can make an appointment for assistance in person at one of our locations. We have our main location downtown on the 3rd floor. We have locations over in Bridgeview, Markham Courthouse, and Skokie Courthouse. So you can sign up, for assistance there. You can also submit questions to us via our website. So if you have questions about exemptions, appeals, your property, things like that, you can do so on there. And something else that I would highly recommend is sign up to receive updates from our office via our newsletter. You get information, for example, of when exemption applications are open, when your township opens for appeals, things like that, and other important dates. So highly recommend all of you doing that. You can do so at the following QR code. And then, I think now we will open it for Q&A. I'll leave the QR code up just in case you want to scan that, sign up for the newsletter and things like that. But yeah, we can take questions that came up. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, George. And we can send that QR code out as well in the follow-up email we're going to send. Just a reminder, because I know a lot of folks popped down a little bit after we already began, and we will send a recording of this out as well. So don't worry about that. We also had a guest appearance from Gail Towers, who's also helped us in the past with this from Cook County Assessor Office. So we got through a lot of the questions, but we did have some more to go through and might just go back and revisit a few that were already answered, just in case some folks were curious about those items that didn't see what was going on in the Q&A section. But first, some of the ones we didn't respond to yet. Venny asked, they had applied for the senior freeze and was told they needed to have their name on the deed, even though they're paying the taxes. Does that sound like a common situation?
That does, yeah. So you do need to be on the deed for the property in order to qualify for the exemptions. So for example, the senior freeze, if I own a house, my senior, my father who's a senior lives in the house, they won't qualify for that exemption because they need to be on the deed for the property. Same thing for with the veterans with disability exemption. It can't be a veteran who just lives in the house. It has to be someone who owns the property, has a legal interest in the property, and is responsible for the taxes. So all requirements do need to be met in order to qualify for the exemption, which is unfortunate. But if you can be added to the deed, something that you can qualify for or apply for, pardon me, for that exemption.
Okay. So as you'd mentioned, you don't have control over the rates or anything. Is there anything you might recommend in terms of tax installments or something to help folks pay their bills by chance?
Yeah, I think and something I would recommend is touching base with the Cook County Treasurer's Office, but I believe they have some sort of tool where they let you know how much interest you'll be paying if you pay by certain date. I'm not too familiar with the tool. I've seen it when going through their website and searching properties on there, but something I would definitely recommend is reaching out to the treasurer's office to see, hey, if I'm gonna pay X amount on this date, and I finish paying by this date, how much interest will I pay or things like that. So to best answer that question, I'll refer you to the treasurer's office, but I believe there are ways they can help.
Okay, cool, thanks. And yeah, so I would just surf around the Cook County Treasurer's Office and see what's on that website.
Yeah, and their website for the taxes, they have the treasurer has really good tools on there. So and then she has something she'll show you, especially during the second installment, where all the money goes to and how much is going to the school districts and park districts and everything else in your district. So I suggest you should go on the website, click on all the links because over there is a wealth of information too.
Great, thanks, Michelle.
Mhm.
Let's see here. Can you apply for the Veterans with Disability exemption at any time? Do you have to live in the home for a specific amount of time before filing?
Wonderful question. No, so that one doesn't have the same requirement as like, for example, the homeowner exemption where you have to be living there on January 1st for the tax year. So if you move in, for example, in November, you can receive that exemption from the time you've been there. The only thing to keep in mind is that it'll be prorated for whatever time you were living there. So if you live there, for example, half of the year, you'll get half of the exemption for that tax year. But yes, you can apply as long as you move it at any point during the tax year, 2024.
Okay. Do solar panels count as a home improvement?
No. So solar panels is something that won't affect the value of your property with us. I believe that's to be considered personal property. I think is what we call it. So if you are thinking of getting solar panels, but are hesitant because you think that'll increase the value that we put on your property, you don't have to worry if they won't count as home improvement.
Okay, good to know. I didn't know that. Yeah. Lucy just wanted to confirm, she thought that you could get a refund for 3 years. You said 5 years. So just to double down on that answer so folks know it's 5 years.
Correct, yeah. And something that you bring up, Lucy, is that it used to be 3 years. I believe due to legislation that maybe changed recently, they extended it to 5 years. So it's good that that has increased. So again, I highly recommend that you go to our website, for everybody to check if you are receiving exemptions since 2019, and if you haven't, submit that certificate of error on our website.
Okay, great. Someone asked, just to clarify, the senior exemption does not need to be renewed because they were told it needs to be reapplied for every 3 or 4 years.
No, so the senior exemption does not need to be reapplied for. So as long as you apply for it, now, or you've applied for it in the past, that'll renew automatically. It's the senior freeze, that one that needs to be applied for every year. There may be, for example, if you do a new mortgage or if you change anything on the deed, exemptions may fall off in that case, right? But that's if there's any changes to the ownership of the property. But no, if you keep everything the same, nothing changes, the senior exemption will renew automatically. And again, to keep in mind is that if for whatever reason, you do a name change, you add someone to the deed and the exemptions do fall off, you can go to our office to get the certificate of error so you can get an adjusted bill before bills are due for the second installment. But yeah, you don't have to reapply for that every year. It'll renew automatically once you apply.
And sometimes too, another cause for an exemption that may fall off, say you may have refinanced your house or something, and sometimes our system may have picked that up as some kind of sale or something, so it may fall off because of that. So all you have to do is, come to our office, or you could reapply back online too. So if somebody's ever wondering, well, why did my exemption fall off for no reason? Maybe you refinanced or something. That could be the reason too.
Always good to check.
Mhm.
Is there like do you recommend everybody to sort of checks their exemptions at the beginning of the year or something like that? Is there kind of like a maintenance for your exemptions recommendation?
Yeah, something that I would recommend is going to our website, but there's also the Cook County Tax Portal. So if you go to your favorite search engine and type that in, Cook County Tax Portal, you can search your property there via the address or the PIN, like with our website, and that'll let you know any information for exemptions that you're receiving, your tax bill if it's due, if you owe anything like that. But it's another great website which will give you a bunch of information, and something that I would recommend is going on there, making sure you're receiving the exemptions. It'll show you other things too. So yeah,
Great.
going to the
We'll
Cook
put
County
that in
Tax
our
Portal.
email for everybody too, to get the Cook County Tax Portal. So that'll be in there as well. And sort of tangentially related, and I think it came up in one of the questions earlier that was answered, but we see a lot of folks who are living in the house, but they're not actually on the deed. They inherited it from a grandparent or a parent or whatever the deal is. Do you know where people should go to get the paperwork to actually make that? I know it's out of your wheelhouse a bit, but I'm just wondering, since you probably come up against it.
I think I'll leave this one to Michelle. Yeah, just because I think it'd be the clerk's office, but I don't want to misspeak. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, so anything that has to do with the deed would be the Cook County Recorder of Deeds office. So there is a number that you could call, 312-603-5050, but they are also under the clerk's office now. So if you go to their website at www.cookcountyclerkil.gov, and go under, I think it's under deeds, then you'll be able to get your deed from their office, but you could also go to their website too. But I'm not sure if you have to actually go in person to do the deed or not, but you could go to their website and check.
Great, thank you. Yeah, that's definitely a thing that we hear from a lot of members. So let's see. I got the senior freeze exemption last year. When is the senior freeze application sent out for this year? I believe but I'll let you, yeah.
Yeah, so we mail this out normally about the time, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, but I think around the time when we open for exemption applications. So like I said, they haven't given us an exact date, but they said they've let us know that it'll be in early March. So early March, mid is when it'll open online. You might receive it mid-March to late March, maybe even April. But that's just an estimate of when you might receive it via mail.
Yeah, because we will send out for those who already are on a senior freeze. we will send out another application for them to fill out if they want to fill it out and mail it in. Or our best bet is to apply online, because once the exemptions open, you could apply for it online. You don't, I don't think you have to wait for us to send you that in the mail to reapply for the senior freeze. And I know like sometimes for the older people, it's hard to file online, but just keep in mind, if you mail your exemption in and you call our office, we have no way of tracking if we have received your exemption in the mail. So say you mailed your senior freeze application in, and like maybe like 4 weeks from now, you want to know if we received it. If it's not in our system, we can't tell if it's in the office or not. So that's why we encourage, or maybe get someone in your family to help you to apply online, because you will get a filing number and we'll be able to look it up online and tell you, you know, where it is in the process, if it's still processing, pending, if it was approved or not. So.
Yeah,
Great,
it just makes it much easier to track it.
great. Okay, I closed on my first home around July 15th, 2023. I have a single family home. Would I qualify for an exemption? If so, would I qualify for the year 2024 and onward?
Yeah, so again, the most basic one is the homeowner exemption for 2023, you wouldn't have qualified under your name because you would have needed to be there from January 1st of 2023. But it is likely that you received the exemptions from the previous owner if they were receiving any automatically renewed exemptions. Now, again, because you were likely receiving any exemptions that the previous owner had, those will fall off for the 2024 tax year, at which point you would need to reapply for any exemptions that you would qualify under your name. So if you were occupying the property as your primary residence on January 1st, 2024, you at least qualify for the homeowner exemption, and because you were owning and were responsible for the taxes. So if no exemptions were on the property previously, there won't be.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Participants are still on. I think we just lost George.
Uh-oh. Oops.
Interesting. That's a first. I assume everyone can still hear us. If somebody could pop on the Q&A and just let us know from our viewers that you all can still hear us. Let's see. We can hear you. Okay. Everyone
Okay.
can see and hear us. Okay, great. Thank you all.
Okay.
All right. Well, Michelle, should we just keep going?
Yeah, let's just keep going. And if there's anything that we can't answer, then you could just send us it to us, and then we'll be able to answer it. Oh, George says his computer died. So
Oh
oops.
no. Well, hopefully he'll find more power, but
Right.
we're gonna power through this.
Right.
Michelle knows her stuff, so we're good. And again, anything else we can follow up on. But this question, though, you probably can also see it, Michelle, but they just made the point that they don't currently have any exemptions from the property. They didn't have it from the property previously. But I think that in that case, then you just wouldn't have gotten any exemptions that year, but you would begin in 2024 with the exemptions if you bought in
Correct.
July 2023. Yeah.
And now if you bought a new house and you bought it January 2nd or January 15th of 2024, unfortunately, you would not qualify because it has to be January 1st of that year. So then you have to wait for next year. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome back, George.
Oh, George is back.
I'm so sorry. I wasn't keeping track of my battery percentage. That's my fault, everybody. But
You're
I will bring back
passionate and into your work.
Yes.
You're paying attention to some battery. Yeah.
I will bring back up the QR code just in case people want to keep using that while we're speaking. But sorry.
No worries at all. Of course. Okay. Let's see. Exemption. So a homeowner exemption was obtained last year via certificate of error applications. Will the exemption renew automatically?
Great question.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's something that we always like to tell people is that it will not, unfortunately. You'd think it would, but unfortunately it won't, because that's, you could have moved out of the property and sold it by then, right? So the certificate of error won't trigger the automatic renewal of any exemption. So yes, please fill out an exemption application to make sure that you receive any exemption that you're supposed to on your tax bill for this year. But yeah, wonderful question.
Okay. There was a follow-up also from Karen asking if a property deed is put in a trust after a homeowner exemption was obtained, do you have to reapply?
No,
One-
I don't think you do, because my mom had put her property in trust, and she didn't have to reapply for her exemptions. So
Okay. What is the maximum number of exemptions you can file for if you're 66, disabled, and a longtime homeowner, et cetera?
Yeah, the maximum number of exemptions that you can receive is 4. So if you receive the homeowner, senior freeze, and person with disability, you can receive all 4 of those. Like I said, between the senior freeze and the longtime occupant, you only receive one of those because they're both income-based. But yeah, you can combine up to 4 exemptions if you qualify for them, to receive the biggest possible discount on your property.
and the thing with the senior and the longtime exemption is, if people are like, well, can I receive both? Like George said, no. The thing is, too, our system knows if, when you're applying for the longtime and senior exemption. So what happens is, if you qualify for both, what our system will do, it will give you the exemption with the most savings. So if you get the most savings on the longtime exemption, that's the exemption that it's going to give you. If it gives you most savings on the senior exemption, that's the exemption that you will receive. So
Got it. Oh, that's good to know.
Mhm.
And a lot of people had that question that we had answered previously, so it's good that it came up again.
Mhm.
So kind of hear it. Is there a charge for being added to the deed?
Ooh, that we don't know, because our office doesn't do the deed. So I don't want to say no or yes. So that you would have to contact the recorder of deeds office for that question. Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like there is, but it's not a ton. It's a
Mhm.
pretty small amount, if I remember correctly, but yeah, definitely, yeah, contact the order deeds. So, and I know we've sort of talked about this in various ways, but is there sort of a list of exemptions you should file for yearly that you guys can speak to?
Yeah, the senior freeze, because again, that one will fall off automatically if you're not 100% permanently and totally disabled by the VA. The Veterans with Disability exemption would be another one. If you receive that paper application via mail from our office for the longtime homeowner exemption, that's another one. And I think I got all of them, Michelle, that I can think of. I'm
Yeah.
not sure
Mhm.
that you
Yeah.
have to file for yearly.
Yes. Mhm.
And I know that the senior freeze and the senior exemption have come up in various ways too. Do you qualify for both of those?
Yeah. So you can receive both. You're not limited to one or the other. So if you receive the senior one, you can get that. And on top of that, if you qualify for the freeze, you can get that as well. So um if you qualify for the freeze, you should receive 3: the homeowner, the senior, and the freeze. So yeah, there's not a limit to one or a choice between one or the other. You should receive both.
Um, Linda says, we own a house together. If my husband is disabled, can we apply for a disability exemption?
Yes. So if your husband, wife, partner is disabled and you're both on the deed, you can apply for exemptions, right? So for example, if I'm married to someone who's 65 years or older, we could apply for the senior exemption on the property as long as we're both on the deed. So that applies as well for veterans with disability exemption. So spouse is, veteran that's receiving at least 30%. You could apply for that exemption, veterans with disability, and that works as well for the persons with disability exemption. So yeah, you can.
So we have a couple more senior freeze questions that came up. When do you apply for the senior freeze, and what do you actually need to show when you apply for it?
So you apply for that, like I said, the exact dates haven't been given to us for when the exemption applications will open, but they're saying it'll be in early March. So exact date to be determined, but estimated date, early March. What you'll need to apply for that exemption will be your ID, right, to show proof that you are who you are, and then you'll also need your income for the 2023 year. In lieu of that income, you can also provide documents to show if you receive one of the following programs. I'll bring that up on screen now. So if you're receiving one of these programs in 2023, you can provide a letter from that year showing that you're receiving these receiving that program. But yeah, if you don't have one of these letters, you can provide your 2023 income for the household. And that's, I think, all, if I'm not mistaken, Michelle. Maybe I missed anything, but I think that'd be
Yeah,
all for the
so
senior freeze.
right. So for with this, if you do, receive one of these, enrolled in one of these that you see here on the screen, what happens is you won't have to then fill out. Well, I think you do now. I think they want you to fill it out, the income. But if you provide that, then wait, you know what? I'm sorry, no. So you don't have to provide your income on the file because this will already have your income saying that your income is 65,000 or below. But this has to be for the 2023 year also.
Okay.
But don't worry, say you're worried and you say, I have one of these. Now what do I do? Because I can't find a letter from 2023. Does that mean I don't qualify? No, all it means is that then you would have to go on the application and fill out your income on the application. But if you had one of these in the letter from 2023, you would not have to fill out the income.
Okay. And this is also sort of piggybacking, but I know that sometimes a little repetition in different scenarios is actually really important to hear, with a lot of these questions. Anytime money's involved, I feel like everyone gets a little like, if you turn 65 in early 2024, but you apply for the senior exemption in 2025, do you qualify for a tax refund for part of the property you paid in 2024? Or sorry, in 2025? In 2024. Sorry, they had corrected one of the numbers. So,
or are they, to clarify, are they asking if they turn 65?
In 2024, they turned 65 in early 2024, but they applied for the exemption in 2025.
Oh. No, because during 2025, you are paying the 2024 taxes. So you're paying the previous years. So taxes are paid 1 year in the year. So 2025, we're paying 2024 taxes. Last year, 2024, we paid 2023. So even though you are applying for the exemption in 2025, you're claiming the exemption for 2024. I hope that makes sense.
And our exemption forms will say 2020, we'll have the 2024 year on there. So if somebody turns 65 this year and they want to apply for the exemption, unfortunately, they have to wait till next year because they were not 65 in 2024 yet. So, and the next year in 2026, we'll be paying the 2025 taxes and the forms will be for 2025. I know it gets a little confusing, but.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I own a condominium and I cannot find comparable when doing an appeal. How can I make an appeal if I own a condominium?
Yeah, so condominiums, I know this gets a little bit into appeals, but condominiums are a little tricky because when looking for comparables, the only real comparables there are other units within your building. So if you know of any sales that have happened in your unit, within that, hopefully that year that you're appealing, or from even a year before, I would include that. The biggest thing with appeals is just writing out a narrative to say why you don't think your property should be valued where it's at. But also appeals for condos get a little trickier because and Michelle can step in if I'm mistaken, but you're paying based on your percentage of ownership within that building. So depending on what we say the value is for the whole building, right? Then you're paying, 50%, and let's say it's your ownership, it might not be that high, right? But then you pay, based on 50% of the value of the building. So again, if there are sales in your condo building, use those as comparables to say, hey, this is what they're selling for. But again, they're a little trickier for condos.
Okay. And speaking of appeals and comparables, or comparables, when you appeal due to your assessment being inconsistent with properties around you, is it best to list your own comparables, or is it just as good to have the assessor do that for you?
Good question. You could do both. So you can list a list of comparables that you want to include in your appeal. And then you can, again, it's important to, whenever you file an appeal, to make a narrative, right? To say, hey, this is what's wrong with my property. But within that narrative, you could say, if you do find any other comparables that may benefit this appeal, please use those. So you can still include them, and you can also let them know that, hey, if you find any better, please use them.
Okay, we only have a couple minutes left, folks. So just we'll answer a couple more of these. And remember again that this is recorded. So a lot of these, things were covered during the presentation that you just might have missed. So we'll send that email out in a few days, and you'll be able to visit this. You can also find it on our website as well. So okay, is there an income max for a homeowner's exemption?
Luckily, there isn't. So whatever your income may be for the homeowner exemption, you can apply for that. So yeah, the only ones that really look at your income are the senior freeze, pardon me, and the long-time occupant exemption. And again, if you do qualify for the long-time occupant exemption, you receive that application via the mail. But yeah, homeowner, senior exemption, veterans with disability exemption, person with disability exemption, returning veterans exemption, those aren't income-based.
Okay. How do property assessments work? Are they done every 3 to 4 years?
They're done every 3 years. So City of Chicago was last year. So for all of those of us that are here in the city, we should have received a letter letting us know, hey, your value changed from this amount to this other amount, whether that's higher or lower. So next time that'll happen will be 2027. This year we are reassessing the the north third of the county. So any of those that are located within that part of the county will receive reassessment letters within this year. But yeah, pretty much every year we reassess one different third.
And please keep in mind too, when you get reassessed, that new assessed value will be on this. So last year, that new assessed value will be on this year's second installment property tax bill. Even if you file an appeal and you did your appeal and got a reduction in assessed value, that new assessed value will be on your second installment property tax bill.
That's right.
I think a lot of these are revisited, things that need to be revisited from the presentation. But one thing I just want to shout out is the question, can you submit a certificate of error for the senior freeze exemption if you missed a year or two?
Yeah, definitely. If you have just found out about the senior freeze now and you qualify since 2019, you can do all 5. So yeah, it could be 1 year, it could be 2, it could be as many as 5 if you qualify since 2019. So yeah, it could be multiple years.
Great. All right. Well, we are just past 7, so we're gonna call it a night. But thank you so much, George and Michelle. Yeah, we got through a lot of questions, I know. So really appreciate that. Also, Gail, thank you for being in the background and helping out as well. There's sort of a rogue helpfulness. But yeah, again, we're going to send this out to everybody. It was recorded, so don't worry if you missed stuff. We'll include some additional information, things that we brought up tonight in the email as well, some helpful links and stuff for you guys. But have a wonderful night. Thank you again, and hopefully we'll see you again soon, George and Michelle.
Yeah, thank you for having us again. And then, yeah, thank you everybody for being here, because you could have been doing anything else, but you decided to be here. So thank you all.
Bye.